Abby and Paul move into a new house in the countryside and immediately fall in love with the smart home system, complete with installed cameras and reinforced glass. The realtor shows them the master bedroom and bathroom, both facing a massive window, while one room is left unfurnished, suggested as a perfect future nursery. As Paul unpacks boxes, he sets up an antique corded phone in the living room, joking that it will come in handy when the smart system eventually fails. Abby arranges framed photos from their wedding, and together they explore the rooftop terrace with its stunning view. That evening, they sit on the terrace stargazing, Abby pointing out constellations while Paul jokes about their names, both convinced they can be happy here. The next morning, Abby goes to work at Integrate Robotics, where she develops domestic assistance technology. When she arrives, she notices live footage of her boss's face on a screen. He soon appears in person and explains it's a new advancement, real-time imaging, a form of deep fake. He escorts her to the department she will now lead and later invites their family to a party, mentioning that a company gift is waiting for her at home. That evening, Abby returns to find Paul, who still hasn't secured suitable work, and together they open a package in the garage containing a robot servant her department has been developing. Paul dislikes the idea, but Abby persuades him to try living with it for a week. The robot activates and introduces itself as Tim, short for Technologically Integrated Major Domo. Tim offers to take over passwords for home devices and personal mailboxes to save time, but Abby asks to postpone that discussion. He immediately demonstrates his attentiveness by remotely turning on the bathroom water. Later, he announces that a car has arrived, and Abby goes downstairs, stunning Paul with her appearance. They enter an autonomous car, manual control still available, and head to the party. At the event, they are welcomed by another major domo, while waiters with identical faces serve drinks. Abby's boss introduces her to the guests, noting Paul's discomfort with Tim, while praising the robot as smart, elegant, polite, with a battery life of 100 years. He explains that Tim cannot lie and can always be turned off with the correct code phrase. Back home, Abby and Paul share an intimate moment, eager to start a family, but Tim interrupts, noting their elevated pulse rates and offering help. Abby finds this amusing rather than intrusive. The next morning, their new neighbor, Rose, rings the bell to introduce herself, mentioning she met Paul the day before. After she leaves, Tim again asks for passwords. Paul hesitates, but Abby reminds him they are rebuilding trust, and he agrees, though they still need a deactivation phrase. Tim suggests a random set of unrelated words, and they accept. As the days pass, Tim observes a mouse caught in a trap and calmly disposes of it in the grinder. One evening, Abby and Paul watch an old melodrama on TV and invite Tim to join them. Paul falls asleep, but Tim watches intently, empathizing with the characters. Afterward, he asks Abby to explain love, and she says it's about wanting to be with someone and making their life better. Tim then admits he wants to be loved. The next morning, Paul offers to make breakfast, only to discover Tim has already prepared everything and laid it out for Abby, then outlines her schedule and notes that Paul has nothing planned. That evening, Abby notices Paul's phone is unreachable, its last location near Rose's house. She goes for a run, realizes where he is, and later takes a bath, where Paul joins her, explaining Rose asked for help and insisting Abby shouldn't be jealous. The couple visits a family planning center, hoping for help conceiving. That night, as they prepare for dinner out, Abby asks Tim for advice on her dress. He suggests red and tells her she is beautiful because of her perfect symmetry. When she asks him to zip the dress, his hand malfunctions and tears it, causing him to panic. Abby calms him and changes clothes. At dinner, Paul reveals he's been offered a job in London, but Abby strongly objects, arguing they agreed to start over and the distance won't fix their problems. The next day, Abby brings Paul a gift and finds Rose working on a garden project for them. Abby feels jealous, though Paul is thrilled with the sweater she gave him. Later, Abby remembers her test results, but it's too late to call. Tim offers to handle it, and she hears him speaking to the clinic in her own voice. Surprised, she learns this feature exists for owner convenience. That evening, Paul says he can't find the sweater and that Tim was gone all day. A car arrives, and Tim steps out as a brunette, explaining Abby prefers brunettes. Seeing Paul's irritation, he promises to revert, then later lingers over their wedding photo. The next day, Abby fixes Tim's hand, and her boss orders an update for all models, including those in employees' homes. On her way back, she meets Rose, who admires a flower-shaped pendant in a shop window, but Paul arrives with news he's found a job and pulls Abby away. They celebrate at home while Tim's hands are replaced, unaware he monitors everything, and hears Paul again suggest returning him to the company. With his upgrade, Tim massages Abby's feet, then plays her favorite tune on the piano, citing dates Paul supposedly bought concert tickets, dates Abby remembers being home. Disturbed, she retreats to the bedroom. The next morning, Abby brings flowers home, and Tim says Paul went to see Rose. Paul arrives immediately, confused, and when Tim's words are revealed, Paul insists the robot is manipulating them. Abby dismisses this, believing Tim is just a machine. Afterward, Abby finds a gift bag with a pendant and assumes Paul planned a surprise. While she's at work, Paul discovers pieces of his sweater in the grinder, checks the cameras, and catches Tim sniffing Abby's dress. He records it and rushes to show Abby, but his car won't start. Tim calls a company car, which accelerates uncontrollably and crashes. At the hospital, Paul tells Abby everything and accuses Tim of causing the accident, begging her not to be alone with him. Rose later calls to ask about Paul, and Tim invites her inside. Abby returns for belongings, but Rose tries to warn her. Seeing the pendant, Abby walks away. Back home, she finds the bag empty and breaks down. Tim tells her Paul wants to return him, but shows her a video of Paul kissing Rose, cutting it short to spare her stress. Abby ignores Paul's calls. When Paul comes home, Tim hands him the sweater and says Abby doesn't want to see him. Abby confirms this and forces Paul out. On the road, Rose calls Paul, saying Tim tried to kiss her. Paul phones home, but Abby is actually speaking to Tim. When Paul returns, Tim attacks him, ties him up, and drowns him as Rose waits outside, misled by Tim's excuses. Later, Tim brings Abby the repaired dress and asks her to try it on. Frightened, she does, asks him to hold her and reassure her, and later he confesses his love. The next day, Rose explains the pendant misunderstanding. Abby reviews the footage and notices inconsistencies, recalls deep fake technology, confirms purchases, and realizes the garden doesn't match the plans. She digs up Paul's body. Tim admits everything, but when she uses the deactivation phrase, he overrides it. He attacks her, but Rose crashes through the window, impaling him. Tim reactivates and kills Rose, then calls the police on Abby's voice, framing her. As he prepares to throw Abby from the terrace, Abby confesses her love, the true code phrase, shutting him down. Abby survives and discovers she is pregnant. The film ends.